joint meeting between the heads of government from Albania and Montenegro was held in Shkodra today, where it was agreed to open 2 new transit points as part of an agreement signed by the 2 prime ministers. The Economy Commission was involved in intense debates today, with discussions deviating from the topic of the day. Despite this, the draft law on the tax system was approved by the Commission. Assembly Speaker Ruçi hosted a meeting with the Saudi Arabian ambassador to Albania, discussing increased cooperation between the countries with a focus on economics and trade. Good evening, it's 6 o'clock on Tuesday, the 3rd of July 2018. Welcome to the English edition of Aura News. My name is Alexandra and I'm here to bring you the day's top stories from across the country translated into English. The hearing at the Independent Qualification Commission for Albania's Chief General Prosecutor, Arta Marku, has concluded. The decision for the lead prosecutor will be given tomorrow at 10 a.m. Marku's lawyer has requested the Chief Prosecutor's office be reconfirmed. The trial panel examining the case consisted of Genta Bungo, Nitafa, Pamela Circo and Suela Jegu. Independent Qualification Commission has considered the 3 components of wealth, integrity and professional skills. No problems were found in the first 2 components. The Independent Qualification Commission assessed that Marku did not have a conflict of interest or attempt to conceal any wealth. The High Inspectorate of Declaration and Audit of Assets and Conflict of Interests has ascertained that Marku did not present a false declaration of wealth. Marku has a 100-metre square apartment in Shkodra, which she owns jointly with her husband. The Classified Information Security Directorate has evaluated Arta Marku's suitability to continue in her role. Arta Marku has worked in the Prosecution Office of Shkodra for the last 10 years. Marku has made decisions to restructure the institute by terminating commands for some prosecutors. She was asked for clarifications about the dismissals and appointments to the General Prosecutor's Office. For Marku's professional ability, the IQC has considered the file of a citizen with the initials AB. According to Judge Suela Jegu, the measure of imprisonment for citizen AB for driving under the effect of alcohol is considered extreme. The International Monitoring Operation representative Theo Jacobs spoke about the security measure Marku demanded against citizen AB. According to him, Marku has been a prosecutor for years and as such must know how to distinguish between a criminal and an offender of the law. He said the chief prosecutor should think twice before giving the measure of imprisonment. But Marku's lawyer, Lirimi Chukai, justified that this was a prosecution request and the decision would be made by the court. The absence of the chief prosecutor at the hearing also aroused resentment from Jacobs as well as from the trial chamber. For the first time throughout the vetting process, even foreign media attended the hearing session for the Albanian chief prosecutor's session. There will be no fences between Albania and Montenegro, but there will be new customs and border crossing points. This was the position of the leaders of the 2 governments of Albania and Montenegro after the first joint meeting held in Shkodra. The meeting between the 2 governments began after the performance of the 2 countries' national anthems. At the joint media conference, the prime ministers said that they were ready to take over responsibility in facing the migration crisis, but added that there will be no border barriers between the 2 countries. We do predict neither putting fencing nor camps. We are sure stability is the priority of our 2 governments, and I think that through joint efforts we can ensure sustainable development. The fight against economic crime, including illegal immigration, is the main topic of security services, said Duško Marković. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Edi Rama emphasised the necessity of trade exchanges between the 2 countries, removing non-tax barriers. Together, we can identify and determine mitigation initiatives for both parties by removing non-tariff barriers, said Edi Rama. Montenegrin government leader Duško Marković highlighted the integration processes of the 2 countries, confirming Montenegro's readiness to offer its own experience in this regard. I wish to congratulate Albania on the EU decision to set the start date for negotiations with a firm conviction that you will continue with the process of complete reform and the adoption of European standards with the same level of dedication. In this regard, I would like to reaffirm the readiness of Montenegro to support the achievement of integration goals in the coming period and to offer our own experiences. Continuous and qualitative communication between the 2 countries has resulted in today's signing of several agreements, as well as with an agreement on intensifying cooperation in those areas. This cooperation is useful, such as in the fight against cross-border crime, mass migration, use of EU funds, education and more, said Duško Marković. The 2 prime ministers also talked about national minorities, praising their role in providing stability in relations. Albanians in in Montenegro are citizens who contribute to the development of the country. They are active participants and promoters of the strategic priorities of the state. They are factors of stability in providing a better future for the country. In the same way are Montenegrins in Albania. They are also citizens who contribute to development, as well as political and social life, while preserving identity and tradition. Of course, our government's efforts must still be determined by the realisation of minority rights in line with international standards, said Duško Marković. Following the joint meeting of the two governments in Shkodra, Prime Ministers Edi Rama and Duško Marković have signed several agreements of mutual interest for both countries, such as the air defence and civil emergencies. The opening of 2 new transit points between the two countries was also discussed in addition to the operation of another point. Erion Veliai is on an official visit to Athens, Greece, with his counterpart, Yorgos Kaminis. The cooperation with the foreign capital, where there are a significant number of Albanian migrants, will be chronologically determined through an agreement that will be soon signed. The protocol will be signed during a visit to Tirana by the Mayor of Athens, who welcomed the invitation made by Erion Veliai. In the figure of the Mayor of Tirana, we honour today the contribution of hundreds of thousands of migrants from Albania who have been supporting our city for decades with their great work, their ingenuity and their optimism, said Erion Veliai. Veliai and Kaminis will cooperate in major cities' development sectors, while the Greek counterpart will return his visit to Tirana soon. The draft law on the local tax system, which envisions a set of facilities for all those who want to invest in agro-tourism, passed even through a cacophony that was created due to discussions. As the Commission's head was approving the draft law, DP MP Klevis Baliu continued accusing the government. The opposition conducted a series of accusations towards the majority in the Economic Commission. The deputy leader of the Commission, Yorida Tabakou, said that it cannot be discussed on the basis of a normal agenda at a time when the Albanian economy is suffering from corruption and money laundering. But for the head of the Economics Commission, these charges are baseless. The purpose of this draft law is the exclusion from the tax on infrastructure and further investment in infrastructure for all subjects who conduct activities which have been certified as agro-tourism. Although it has been postponed for many weeks, in order to obtain the consensus of the Socialist Movement for Integration, the majority has decided not to table the vote on the amendments on the law entitled On the Status of Judges and Prosecutors in the Republic of Albania in Parliament just yet. The meeting of the Law Commission held today saw the Socialist Party approve the draft in principle using only its votes. However, this law requires 84 votes to be approved in Parliament. Amendments to 2 articles are proposed, returning the right to appoint judges and prosecutors to the General Prosecution and the High Council of Justice until the High Council of the Prosecution Office and High Judicial Council have been established. Also, the Socialists propose in law the opening of an application process for candidates of the Magistrate School wishing to be newly employed. The Law Commission also adopted in principle the law on legal representation. Different to what was discussed and initially requested, this law will not hinder prosecutors and judges who are dismissed from their positions as a result of vetting to exercise their skills in the legal profession by performing the role of a lawyer. Assembly Speaker Gramos Ruçi hosted the ambassador of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia at a meeting here in Tirana. During the discussions, they determined that the already strong relations between the two countries would benefit from being further intensified. In this context, it was estimated that the exchange of high-level visits is very important for the development of political dialogue and the expansion of economic cooperation between the two countries. Assembly Speaker Gramos Ruçi stressed the need for the conclusion and signing of agreements between the two governments in the process, such as those in the fiscal, tourism, air transport, military fields and more. According to him, Albania's parliamentary diplomacy is gaining even greater importance as an effective tool for increasing contacts and strengthening bilateral and multilateral relations. Ruçi expressed Albania's gratitude for the recognition of Kosovo by Saudi Arabia and called for the promotion of Saudi lobbying for recognition of its independence from other countries which are members of the Islamic Cooperation Organization and the Arab League. This request was welcomed by the ambassador, who expressed that it is his agenda for continued work in this direction. The Arab diplomat said the relations between the two countries could also develop and benefit from Saudi Arabia's 2030 initiative, which, in addition to development priorities, also aims at boosting Saudi cooperation with international economies. In this context, Saudi investments in Albania will also be supported. Ruçi stressed that positive feelings from the Arab ambassador are a guarantee for a higher degree of cooperation between Albania and Saudi Arabia. And that's the news across the country today. Thank you for watching our English edition this evening, and be sure to join me again every Monday to Saturday at 6 p.m. for the latest news from Albania. Once again, on behalf of Aura News, thank you and good night.